China's two CEOs, a black woman and a Korean man, chose respect over rules and love over legacy. The signature line waits beneath Kyungrae Wallace's pen as camera flashes explode across the Seoul press conference. Lee Jun-ho stands beside her, his charcoal suit immaculate despite the chaos, watching $2 billion hang in the balance. The contract, 200 pages of legal precision, sits between them like a battlefield treaty. CEO Wallace, a reporter calls out in Korean, translated through her earpiece. Your company demands community safeguards. Isn't this just American interference in Korean business practices? Kyungrae doesn't flinch. She lifts the microphone with steady hands, her navy blazer sharp against the stage lights. Respect isn't interference, she says, her voice carrying across the packed auditorium. It's non-negotiable. Beside her, Jun-ho feels his uncle's stare burning from the VIP section. Lee Dong-wook leans forward, phone already in hand, ready to destroy his nephew's reputation if this deal collapses. The telecommunications empire, his father's legacy, trembles on the edge of scandal. Mr. Lee, another journalist presses, your board prefers the original proposal. Are you choosing sentiment over shareholders? Jun-ho's jaw tightens. 3 months ago, he would have signed whatever document his uncle placed before him. But now, after seeing a school principal humiliated by his company's contractors, after watching Kyungrae defend communities his balance sheets had forgotten, the old playbook feels like poison. He takes the microphone. Rule without respect, he says slowly, each word deliberate, is fear in ink. The room erupts. His uncle's face darkens. Kyungrae turns to look at him, really look, for the first time since this war began. Jun-ho opens the contract to page 127, where clause 7. 4 weights in black letters. No respect for local communities, no signature. He reads it aloud, his voice steady despite the tremor in his chest. Then he signs her version. The ballroom explodes in camera clicks and heated whispers. But in the chaos, neither CEO notices Park Min-seok slip his phone from his pocket, or the way Lee Dong-wook's confident smile finally cracks. If you're already rooting for leaders who choose people over profit, subscribe to discover how this collision of worlds becomes something neither of them expected. The Legion Tower pierces Seoul's skyline like a steel and glass monument to ambition. On the 47th floor, Kyungrae Wallace adjusts her pearl necklace and surveys the conference room that could house her entire company's headquarters. Floor-to-ceiling windows frame Gangnam's sprawling maze of corporate fortresses, each one a testament to Korea's economic miracle. Impressive, Maya Santos murmurs beside her, tablet ready for the negotiation ahead. But intimidation only works if you let it. Kyungrae's smile is sharp. They invited us here to sign their contract. They should have known better. The mahogany doors swing open. Lee Jun-ho enters with the measured precision of someone who learned to control every gesture before he could spell his own name. His entourage follows. 3 men in identical black suits, tablets synchronized, expressions neutral. Corporate choreography at its finest. CEO Wallace. Jun-ho offers a respectful bow, his English crisp despite the formal Korean honorifics that preceded it. Welcome to Korea. Thank you for hosting us. Kyungrae's bow is precise but brief, though I suspect we have different definitions of welcome. His corporate smile tightens almost imperceptibly. Around the room, assistants pause their preparations. Maya shoots her boss a warning look. They haven't even reached their seats yet. Please sit. Jun-ho gestures to the side of the table facing the windows. The power move is subtle but unmistakable. Visitors get the view. Hosts maintain control of the room's energy. As they settle into leather chairs worth more than most people's cars, Kyungrae places her folder on the glass table with enough force to make the crystal water glasses chime. Let's address the elephant in the room, she says. Your proposal is impressive. It's also dangerous. Park Min-seok leans forward to translate for the older man observing from a side chair. Lee Dong-wook, Jun-ho's uncle, whose presence radiates the kind of authority that doesn't require titles. His eyes narrow as he processes Kyungrae's words. Dangerous. Junho tilts his head. Our infrastructure will connect 200,000 students across Southeast Asia in 6 months. The economic impact. Economic impact without human consideration is just exploitation with better marketing. Kendra opens her folder, revealing months of research her team compiled on Korean corporate practices. Centralized servers, outsourced maintenance, coordinator training only. What about teacher empowerment, community ownership, long-term sustainability? The temperature in the room drops several degrees. One of Junho's assistants whispers something urgent in Korean. On the wall-mounted screen, a video conference window flickers to life, revealing Richard Sterling's face from New York. Kendra, her own board member's voice crackles through the speakers. We're talking about a $2 billion infrastructure deal. We can't complicate it with micromanagement. She turns to the screen without missing a beat. Richard, when's the last time you set foot in a public school? That's not because I grew up in one, in Detroit, where promises of technology upgrades turned into broken computers and frustrated teachers because nobody built in community support. Her voice carries the weight of personal history that transforms business statistics into human reality. I won't be part of that again. Junho watches this exchange with something approaching fascination. In his world, challenging board members publicly violates every rule of corporate hierarchy. Yet here sits a woman half his company's size, calmly defying investors who could destroy her career with a phone call. What exactly are you proposing? He asks when the room settles. Kendra pulls out a document that looks nothing like the contract his lawyers prepared. Community partnership clauses, teacher training requirements, local technician hiring mandates. And this. She slides a page across the table. Clause 7.4. Commitment to community dignity. No respect for local communities. No signature. The silence stretches like a held breath. In the adjacent observation room, Lee Dong-wook's face hardens into granite. This American woman, this outsider, threatens everything he's built. Every carefully maintained relationship that keeps the Lee family empire profitable. Through the conference room's glass walls, Seoul sprawls endlessly, 8 million people navigating their own complex negotiations between tradition and progress, hierarchy and independence, family loyalty and personal dreams. In this moment, 2 of those people sit across from each other, holding the future of educational technology in their careful, stubborn hands. Junho stares at Clause 7.4, knowing that signing it would make him an enemy to everyone who matters. But refusing it would make him an enemy to himself. The hotel bar exists in that liminal space between East and West that Seoul perfects. Whiskey neat served alongside soju, jazz piano mixing with subtle K-pop beats, conversations flowing between 3 languages at marble tables. Kendra sits alone in the corner booth, studying contract amendments on her laptop while nursing a glass of red wine. May I join you? She looks up to find Junho standing beside her table, tie loosened, the rigid corporate armor slightly cracked. Without his entourage, he looks younger, more uncertain. Shouldn't you be strategizing with your uncle? Probably. He slides into the booth opposite her. But I keep thinking about what you said, about Detroit. Kendra closes her laptop slowly. What about it? The way you talked about broken promises, like it was personal. Because it was. She swirls her wine, considering how much truth to reveal to this man who represents everything she's fought against. Lincoln Elementary, 3rd grade. They installed a computer lab with great fanfare, photo opportunities, speeches about bridging the digital divide. 6 months later, half the computers were broken. The software was outdated, and nobody knew how to fix any of it. What happened to the support contracts? Expired. The company moved on to their next public relations opportunity. She takes a sip, tasting bitterness that has nothing to do with tannins. My teacher, Mrs. Patterson, spent her own money trying to keep those machines running. But a public school teacher's salary can't compete with corporate neglect. Junho orders whiskey from the passing server, processing this story that transforms their business negotiation into something more personal. That's why you started your company. That's why I'll never sign a contract that repeats the same mistakes. Kendra studies his face, searching for tells that reveal whether this conversation is strategy or genuine curiosity. What about you? Why telecommunications? Family legacy. The phrase comes out automatic, practiced. Then he catches himself. That's not entirely true. I wanted to study music, piano. My father built this company from nothing after the war, and his son was supposed to appreciate art, not waste time on it. But you still play. How do you... You have calluses on your fingertips, very specific patterns. Kendra's observation carries no judgment, just recognition. I teach piano too. Well, taught. Before the company grew too large. Something shifts in the space between them. Not attraction, not yet, but understanding. Two people who abandoned their first dreams to chase other people's definitions of success. My uncle believes that compromise is weakness, Junho says quietly. That my father would have closed this deal in an hour without accommodating foreign sentiments. And you? He sips his whiskey, weighing honesty against family loyalty. I think my father would have asked better questions. Before Kendra can respond, her phone buzzes with a text from Maya. Hotel lobby. Now, we have a problem. In the lobby, Maya's face is grim as she shows Kendra her tablet screen. The headline, in both Korean and English, blazes across the entertainment section. Mystery woman challenges chaebol heir, secret negotiation or Seoul romance. The photo, taken through the bar's floor-to-ceiling windows, shows Kendra and Junho leaning across their table, deep in conversation, wine glasses and intimate lighting suggesting something far different from their actual discussion. This is bad, Maya says. Richard's already called twice. The board's in emergency session. How bad? Kendra's mind races through implications. Her company's reputation, carefully built over 7 years, could crumble under the weight of scandal-hungry media that reduces professional women to romantic storylines. Bad enough that the Korean business news is questioning whether you're qualified to handle major international contracts, or if you're just here chasing chaebols. Across the lobby, Kendra notices Park Min-seok hurrying toward the elevators, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Korean. His expression mirrors Maya's concern. Whatever conversations are happening on the Korean side, they're equally urgent. Statement or silence? Maya asks. Kendra stares at the photograph, seeing her life's work reduced to gossip column speculation. Statement, professional only, and schedule a meeting with their legal team for tomorrow morning. If they want to play games, we'll remind them what's actually at stake here. But as they head toward the elevators, Kendra can't shake the memory of Junho's expression when he talked about his father, or the way his voice softened when he mentioned music. Professional boundaries exist for good reasons. Personal connections and high-stakes negotiations lead to compromised judgment and broken careers. By morning, the photo has made international headlines, and both their companies face a crisis neither anticipated. The penthouse office of Lee Dong-wook commands a view of Seoul that speaks of generations of accumulated power. Traditional Korean furniture mingles with modern technology, a visual reminder that successful families adapt without abandoning their foundations. Junho stands before his uncle's desk like a defendant awaiting verdict, still in yesterday's clothes. The American woman embarrassed us publicly, Dong-wook says in Korean, his voice carrying decades of authority. First challenging our proposal in front of our own board, now parading her disrespect through hotel bars for photographers to document. Uncle, we were discussing the contract. Were you? Dong-wook slides a tablet across his desk. Multiple news sites display the photo, each with increasingly sensational headlines. Because it looks like you were discussing something far more personal. Junho studies the image that transforms a professional conversation into apparent intimacy. The lighting, the angle, the way they both leaned forward. He can see how it reads as romantic rather than strategic. The media creates stories where none exist. The media reflects what they observe. Dong-wook stands, moving to the windows that frame his empire. Your father built this company by understanding that perception shapes reality. Right now, The perception is that his son values foreign relationships over family loyalty. The weight of generational expectations settles on Junho's shoulders like lead. Since his father's death 2 years ago, every decision has been filtered through the question of what would honor his memory. But increasingly, his uncle's version of honor feels more like fear. Fear of change, fear of challenge, fear of anything that threatens established patterns. What would you have me do? End this negotiation. The original infrastructure proposal was generous enough. If the American company wants to add complications, they can find other partners. And the 200,000 students? Dongwook's smile lacks warmth. We'll receive education through our existing programs, managed by Korean companies that understand Korean values. Across town, in a hotel suite that serves as temporary war room, Kendra faces her own family pressure. Richard Sterling's face fills the laptop screen, his carefully styled gray hair and expensive suit broadcasting wealth and impatience in equal measure. Kendra, I've been patient with your idealistic tendencies, he says. But this Korean situation has crossed into professional sabotage. Professional sabotage? Kendra's voice remains level, despite the fury building in her chest. We're negotiating the largest education technology contract in our company's history. You're having romantic dinners with foreign businessmen while our stock price tanks. Richard's tone carries the condescension of a man who inherited his board position rather than earning it. The other investors are reconsidering our support. Maya, listening from across the room, raises her eyebrows in warning. Losing board support would kill the company Kendra built from nothing, render meaningless every 18-hour day, every personal sacrifice, every small victory in bringing technology to underserved communities. The photo was taken out of context, Kendra says carefully. A business meeting in a public space. Context doesn't matter when shareholders are questioning your judgment. Richard leans forward, his face filling more of the screen. Close this deal on their original terms, or we're pulling support. After the call ends, Maya closes her laptop and studies her boss's expression. What are you thinking? Kendra moves to the window, Seoul spreading below like a circuit board. Millions of lights representing millions of people whose lives intersect in ways they'll never understand. I'm thinking that everyone wants us to compromise our values for their comfort. And I've been compromising my whole life, starting in that broken computer lab in Detroit. Kendra turns back to Maya, decision crystallizing in her voice. We're not backing down. Schedule another meeting with Lee Junho. Direct negotiation, no boards, no uncles, no public relations consultants. Just two people who understand what education means. That's either brilliant or career suicide. Sometimes they're the same thing. But neither Kendra nor Junho realizes that their uncles and board members are already meeting privately, planning to remove both CEOs from the negotiation entirely. The morning rain turns Seoul's streets into rivers of reflected neon, but the pilot school in Songpa district exists in a quieter world. Gangbok Elementary sits between apartment towers, its modest buildings housing 500 students whose families navigate the complex mathematics of ambition and survival in modern Korea. Kendra arrives first, stepping carefully across puddle-strewn pavement in her practical flats, navy trench coat beaded with raindrops. Inside, the halls buzz with elementary energy. Children's laughter mixing with teachers' patient instructions, art projects decorating walls that speak of creativity flourishing despite limited budgets. Principal Kim Jong-soo greets her with the careful courtesy reserved for important visitors. His English, while functional, requires frequent pauses as he searches for precise words to describe his school's needs. The computer lab, he explains, leading her down the hall, was installed 3 years ago. Very impressive ceremony. Many promises. They enter a room filled with outdated machines, half of which display error messages or blank screens. A few students cluster around the working computers, taking turns with patient acceptance of technological failure. The maintenance company, Principal Kim continues, they come when called. But parts are expensive. Training is, minimal. Kendra kneels beside one of the functioning computers, watching a 10-year-old girl navigate educational software with the resourcefulness of someone accustomed to making broken things work. How often does the internet connection fail? 2-3 times per week. The children, they adapt, but the teachers... He shakes his head. They try to use technology, but when it fails repeatedly, they return to traditional methods. Before Kendra can respond, voices in the hallway announce another visitor. Through the lab's glass windows, she sees Junho entering with Park Min-seok and a third man she recognizes from corporate photos, Kim Tae-hyun, the facilities manager whose company handles maintenance contracts for Lee Group's educational initiatives. The introductions are formal, professionally polite, but Kendra notices Principal Kim's posture shift when Tae-hyun speaks. The older educator's shoulders tighten, his responses becoming shorter, more deferential. Something unspoken passes between the men. The maintenance schedule has been very efficient, Tae-hyun says in English for Kendra's benefit, though his tone suggests he's performing for Junho rather than informing her. Response times have improved significantly this quarter. The last repair took 6 weeks, Principal Kim says quietly. Because proper part sourcing requires quality verification, Tae-hyun replies, his voice sharp enough to make the principal look down. We cannot compromise system integrity for convenience. Junho watches this exchange with growing discomfort. The dynamic, subordinate accepting dismissal, authority figure asserting dominance through bureaucratic language, mirrors every interaction he's observed between his uncle and supposedly equal business partners. Principal Kim, Kendra interjects, would you mind showing us the specific equipment that's been problematic? For the next 20 minutes, they document failures that paint a clear picture. Sophisticated technology installed without adequate support systems, communities forced to depend on external companies that prioritize profit margins over educational outcomes, educators who adapt to broken promises because challenging contractors risks losing service entirely. The children deserve better, Principal Kim says simply as they conclude their tour. They do, Junho says, surprising everyone including himself. He's been silent through most of the visit, processing the gap between his company's quarterly reports and the reality of their impact. Outside, as they prepare to leave, Tae-hyun pulls Principal Kim aside for a conversation in rapid Korean. Kendra doesn't understand the words, but the body language is universal. Warning, intimidation, reminder of who controls essential resources. She steps closer. Is there a problem? No problem, Tae-hyun says quickly, just scheduling next maintenance visit. But Principal Kim's face tells a different story. This man, who spent 30 years teaching children to value truth and courage, now practices the careful silence of someone who's learned that honesty carries risks. Thank you for hosting us, Junho tells the principal, bowing with genuine respect. Your insights will inform our planning. As they walk to their separate cars, Kendra catches Junho's sleeve. What just happened between your contractor and that principal? I don't know. His admission comes reluctantly, but I intend to find out. That evening, Junho sits in his penthouse office, city lights sprawling beyond floor-to-ceiling windows, replaying every moment of the school visit. The broken computers matter less than Principal Kim's defeated acceptance, the way a career educator learned to expect failure and fear complaint. When Park Min-seok enters with quarterly maintenance reports, Junho doesn't look up from his contemplation. How many schools like Gangbok do we serve? Approximately 200 in Seoul alone, sir. 1,200 across our education initiative network. And how many have filed formal complaints about service? Min-seok pauses, consulting his tablet. 7 in the past year. 7. Junho finally turns from the window. Out of 1,200 schools. That seems remarkably few for institutions relying on complex technology. Korean educational administrators typically handle problems internally rather than risk losing support by complaining. The realization sits heavy in Junho's chest. His company's impressive satisfaction statistics reflect fear, not success. I want direct meetings with principals. No contractors present, no formal evaluation processes, just conversations about what's actually working. Sir, That would require significant schedule adjustment. Mr. Dong-wook expects, I'll handle my uncle. Junho's voice carries a firmness that surprises them both. Schedule the meetings. By week's end, those conversations will reveal a pattern of systematic neglect that forces Junho to question everything he inherited, while Kendra prepares for a confrontation that could end her career. The community center in Mapo district shouldn't exist. 3 years ago, this building housed a failing convenience store in a neighborhood marked for redevelopment. Now, after 10 p.m., it transforms into Seoul's unofficial evening campus, where working parents attend computer literacy classes, where teenagers learn coding that public schools can't afford to teach, where elderly residents discover that technology doesn't have to be the enemy of human connection. Junho arrives unannounced, rain-soaked, and unsure why he felt compelled to see what Kendra's company actually does beyond board presentations and profit margins. Park Min-seok tried to discourage this impromptu visit, but something about the school visit earlier this week cracked open questions that quarterly reports couldn't answer. Through the center's windows, warm light spills onto empty streets. Inside, 23 people of various ages cluster around refurbished computers, led by a volunteer instructor who patiently explains email basics to a grandmother whose daughter lives in Canada. You're Lee Junho. The voice belongs to David Park, the center's night coordinator, who approaches with the careful politeness of someone recognizing unexpected power. We weren't expecting... I wanted to see the program. Junho removes his rain jacket, expensive fabric suddenly conspicuous among the center's humble furnishings, if that's acceptable. Of course, though most visitors come during daytime hours when operations are more formal. David leads him through the space that Kendra's company helped create. Not through direct funding. Her organization lacks the resources for major charitable initiatives, but through equipment donations, volunteer coordination, and the kind of hands-on support that doesn't generate tax write-offs or publicity. In the main classroom, Mrs. Song raises her hand like a student, though she's probably 70 years old. Teacher, when I try to attach the photo, it disappears. The volunteer instructor, a 20-something programmer named Jenny who donates 3 evenings per week, leans over to help. Files too large can cause problems. Let's try resizing first. But I want my daughter to see her grandson clearly. I know. We'll make it work. Junho watches this interaction with growing fascination. Here, technology serves human connection rather than corporate efficiency. Problems get solved through patient explanation rather than technical dismissal. Success is measured in individual breakthrough moments, not aggregate user statistics. The waiting list is 3 months long, David explains quietly. Word spreads through families, churches, apartment building communities. People trust recommendations from neighbors more than official programs. What makes this different from government digital literacy initiatives? Time, respect, the understanding that learning happens at different speeds. David pauses, choosing his words carefully. And the knowledge that nobody profits from these students' struggles. In the corner, a middle-aged man helps his teenage daughter with college application essays, both of them sharing a single computer terminal. The father types slowly, translating his thoughts from Korean to English, while his daughter provides patient corrections. Their collaboration speaks of family bonds strengthened rather than stressed by technological challenges. That's Mr. Huang, David says, noticing Junho's attention. Laid off from factory work last year, his daughter got into Seoul National University. This center helped him learn online job search skills while she worked on applications. And now? He starts a new position next week. Customer service for a tech company. Says he wants to help people solve problems instead of just building products. Near the back of the room, an elderly woman struggles with basic mouse functions, her movements careful and uncertain. The volunteer instructor approaches with infinite patience, demonstrating click techniques without a trace of condescension. Mrs. Kim lost her husband 6 months ago, David continues. Their son lives in America. Learning video calling seemed impossible at first, but she's determined to see her grandchildren grow up. Junho watches Mrs. Kim's face lights up when she successfully opens a new browser window. The achievement is small by corporate standards, monumentally significant by human ones. When she looks up and sees him watching, she bows slightly in automatic politeness, then returns to her screen with newfound confidence. How many people have been through the program? Since Kendra Wallace's company started supporting us? About 400. But that's not really the metric that matters. What metric does? David considers the question, watching the classroom where individual struggles transform into collective success. Mrs. Song sent her first email to Canada last month. Mr. Huang's daughter is starting university next semester. Mrs. Kim had a video call with her grandchildren yesterday and cried with joy. Those aren't metrics. They're stories. Exactly. David's smile carries the satisfaction of someone whose work generates meaning rather than profit. CEO Wallace says technology should amplify human dignity, not replace it. Everything we do here reflects that principle. Outside, the rain continues. Seoul's relentless rhythm of construction and ambition temporarily softened by the night's quietude. But inside this modest community center, people learn that progress doesn't require abandoning anyone, that innovation serves its highest purpose when it connects rather than isolates, that the most sophisticated systems are those designed to help humans help each other. Junho stays until closing, helping stack chairs and lock computers, his presence gradually shifting from observer to participant. When David offers him a volunteer application, he doesn't immediately dismiss the idea. Walking to his car through empty streets, Junho considers the contrast between this evening and every board meeting he's attended in the past 2 years. Tonight, he witnessed technology creating opportunities rather than eliminating them, serving communities rather than exploiting them, honoring individual dignity rather than reducing people to data points. His phone buzzes with a message from his uncle. Emergency board session tomorrow. American company threatening withdrawal. Need unified response. Junho stares at the text, then at the community center's darkened windows, understanding finally that the choice ahead isn't about business strategies or family expectations. It's about deciding what kind of legacy he wants to build from the ashes of his father's dreams. But morning will bring a crisis that tests whether good intentions can survive when powerful people decide that idealism threatens their control. The boardroom at Lee Group headquarters radiates the kind of power that shapes nations. Mahogany paneling, leather chairs arranged with military precision, portraits of company founders watching over 3 generations of accumulated influence. At 6 a.m., this space hosts urgent conversations that will ripple through markets before most people finish their morning coffee. Lee Dong-wook controls the room's energy from the head of the table, his presence commanding despite the early hour. Around him, 8 board members represent Korea's business elite. Men who built careers on understanding when to compromise and when to destroy opposition. The American situation requires immediate resolution, Dong-wook announces, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to unquestioned obedience. Their CEO's demands threaten our operational efficiency and profit margins. Executive Vice President Choi Young-min leans forward, consulting his tablet. The infrastructure proposal, as originally designed, generates 43% profit margins. Their community safeguard requirements reduce that to 18%. Unacceptable, declares Finance Director Kim Soo-jung. Shareholders expect optimized returns, not social experimentation. Furthermore, Dong-wook continues, the media attention surrounding Junho's personal involvement damages our corporate reputation. International partners question his judgment. Domestic competitors sense weakness. Board members exchange glances that communicate volumes about family dynamics and succession planning. Junho's position as heir apparent depends on demonstrating strength, not accommodation to foreign pressure. What resolution do you recommend? Asked Director Park Byung-ho. Junho will present their company with our final terms. Dong-wook replies. Original infrastructure proposal. Standard maintenance contracts. No community intervention clauses. They accept, or we pursue alternatives. And if he refuses? He won't. Dong-wook's smile lacks warmth. Family loyalty trumps personal preference. His father built this company on that principle. Across Seoul, in a hotel conference room that serves as temporary headquarters, Kendra faces her own moment of reckoning. Richard Sterling's presence, delivered via high-definition video connection, fills the room with expensive cologne and barely contained frustration. "Kendra, the Korean deal is becoming a liability," he announces without preamble. Stock price has dropped 12%. Major investors are reconsidering their support. The board has concerns about your judgment in international negotiations. Maya sits beside Kendra, tablet ready, expression carefully neutral despite the personal loyalty burning in her chest. She's watched her boss build this company through determination and 18-hour days, seen communities transformed by technology, deployed with respect rather than arrogance. "The contract negotiations are progressing," Kendra responds evenly. "Their latest proposal includes some of our safeguard requirements. Not enough. And frankly, your personal involvement with their CEO suggests compromised objectivity." "Personal involvement?" Kendra's voice sharpens. "We had one business conversation in a hotel bar that gossip columnists transformed into romance speculation. Perception shapes reality." Richard's tone mirrors Lee Dong-wook's authority. Different culture, but identical arrogance. "Board members worry about your priorities. My priority is ensuring that educational technology serves communities rather than exploiting them. Your priority should be shareholder value and company survival." Richard leans closer to his camera, his face filling the screen. "Accept their original infrastructure proposal, or we're removing you from the negotiation." The silence that follows contains multitudes, years of building trust with communities that depend on Kendra's company to honor commitments, hundreds of schools that rely on technology implemented with dignity rather than expedience, thousands of students whose educational futures hang in the balance between profit margins and principled leadership. "Richard," Kendra says finally, "when you inherited your board position from your father, did he teach you that leadership means abandoning values for convenience? Leadership means making practical decisions that ensure organizational survival." "No, that's management. Leadership means holding principles even when powerful people demand compromise." The video call ends abruptly, leaving Kendra and Maya staring at a blank screen that reflects their own uncertain faces. "Options?" Maya asks quietly. "We can accept their terms and spend the rest of our careers implementing technology that serves shareholders rather than students. Or we can hold our position and lose company support. Third option?" Kendra moves to the window, Seoul sprawling beneath morning clouds, millions of people navigating their own choices between security and integrity. "We find partners who understand that sustainable business serves communities, not just investors." That's idealistic. Everything worthwhile starts with idealism. Kendra turns back to Maya, decision crystallizing in her expression. "Schedule a direct meeting with Lee Jun-ho. No boards, no uncles, no corporate handlers. Just two people who understand what education means. His family won't approve. Then he'll have to choose between family approval and personal integrity." At Legion Tower, Jun-ho receives both messages simultaneously, his uncle's ultimatum and Kendra's meeting request. Standing in his office, rain streaking the windows that frame his inherited empire, he understands that the next conversation will determine not just the fate of a business deal, but the trajectory of his own soul. Park Min-seok enters with coffee and careful concern. "Sir, your uncle expects a response within the hour. And CEO Wallace expects an answer about the meeting. The family expects loyalty." Jun-ho stares at the community center's address, still stored in his phone from last night's unexpected revelation. What if loyalty to family means betraying everything my father actually believed? By evening, both CEOs will face meetings that force them to choose between inherited expectations and earned convictions, while their families prepare for battles that will redefine legacy itself. The private dining room at Shilla Hotel exists in that rarefied space where Seoul's power elite conduct negotiations that reshape industries. Traditional Korean architecture meets contemporary luxury. Hanji paper screens filtering soft light, low wooden tables surrounded by silk cushions. privacy that allows for conversations too sensitive for corporate boardrooms. Kendra arrives first, having shed her usual business attire for a simple black dress that communicates respect for Korean formal traditions without surrendering her professional authority. Maya waits in the hotel lobby, backup and witness, ready to document whatever unfolds in the next 2 hours. Junho enters alone, having left Park Min-seok behind despite protocol that demands executive protection. His charcoal suit is impeccable, but his expression carries the weight of someone who spent the day disappointing powerful people who expect obedience. "Thank you for coming," Kendra says as they settle onto the silk cushions, formality masking the personal stakes they both understand. "Thank you for requesting the meeting. Though I should warn you, my uncle was displeased by my decision to attend. My board had similar reactions." Kendra pours tea with careful precision, the ritual providing structure for a conversation that could destroy both their careers. "We appear to be disappointing a lot of people. Sometimes disappointing the wrong people is the first step toward pleasing the right ones." They eat in relative silence, bulgogi and banchan, prepared by chefs who understand that important conversations require excellent food. The flavors speak of centuries of Korean culinary tradition, yet somehow the meal feels less foreign to Kendra than the corporate negotiations that brought them together. "I visited your community center," Junho says as servers clear the main course. "In Mapo District, Tuesday evening." Kendra's surprise is genuine. "I wasn't told, because I didn't announce it. I wanted to see what your company actually does beyond proposals and profit projections. And I met Mrs. Kim, who learned video calling so she could see her grandchildren in America. Mr. Huang, who found new work after your volunteers taught him online job skills. Mrs. Song, who sent her first email to Canada." Junho's voice carries something softer than his usual corporate precision. "They weren't statistics. They were people whose lives improved because someone cared enough to teach technology with patience. That's why we do this work. And it's why I've been lying to myself about what my father would have wanted." The admission comes quietly, like a secret he's kept even from himself. He built this company to create opportunities, not exploit them. Somewhere along the way, we lost sight of that mission. Kendra studies his expression, searching for manipulation or strategic positioning. Instead, she finds something rarer in corporate negotiations, genuine reflection, and the vulnerability of someone questioning inherited assumptions. "My uncle gave me an ultimatum today," Junho continues. "Present you with our original terms, no modifications, or face family consequences that include removing me from company leadership. And my board issued a similar threat. Accept your original proposal, or lose support for the negotiation. So we both face the same choice. Honor our principles, or preserve our positions. Except they're not mutually exclusive," Kendra says, pulling out a document that represents weeks of late-night strategizing with Maya. "There's a third option." She slides the proposal across the low table. Junho reads carefully, his expression shifting from curiosity to surprise, to something approaching hope. "A joint venture," he says. "Your social impact expertise combined with our infrastructure capabilities. Community partnership requirements built into the business model rather than added as afterthoughts. Profit margins reduced to sustainable levels. Local hiring mandates. Teacher training as standard operating procedure. Technology deployment that serves communities rather than extracting value from them. Your Clause 7.4 becomes the foundation of company policy. Both our boards will hate it. Both our families will consider it betrayal." They stare at the proposal that transforms their negotiation from zero-sum competition into collaborative innovation. Outside, Seoul's evening rhythm continues. Millions of people navigating their own complex negotiations between tradition and progress, family expectations and personal dreams. "If we do this," Junho says quietly, "there's no going back. We're choosing to build something new rather than preserving what we inherited. Yes, we're risking everything our families built for a vision that might fail. Yes, we're trusting each other despite having every reason to remain adversaries. Yes, Kendra meets his gaze directly. The question is whether we have the courage to sign our names to a future nobody else understands. Junho reaches into his jacket, withdrawing the platinum pen that has signed dozens of contracts protecting his family's interests. Tonight, it will either sign their most important agreement or remain forever associated with the moment he chose preservation over progress. "If I sign this," he says, "I'm not the same person who walked into that first meeting. If we both sign this, neither of us will be." The pen hovers over the signature line, carrying the weight of generational expectations and personal dreams, family loyalty and individual integrity, the comfortable safety of inherited power, and the uncertain promise of earned purpose. My father used to say that the most important contracts aren't about what we inherit, but what we leave behind. Junho signs his name with the careful precision of someone who understands that this moment will define not just the next year of business operations, but the trajectory of his entire life. Kendra takes the pen, its weight familiar yet somehow different now, charged with the significance of choices that echo far beyond quarterly earnings reports. She signs her name beside his. Two signatures that transform a business negotiation into something resembling a covenant. Not just between their companies, but between two people who decided to trust each other enough to build something that honors communities rather than exploiting them. But neither realizes that their families are already moving to destroy the partnership before morning's headlines can announce it to the world. The emergency family meeting convenes at the ancestral Lee estate in Seongbuk-dong, where 4 generations of Korea's business elite have gathered to address threats to dynastic power. The Hanok's traditional architecture, curved rooflines, heated ondel floors, gardens that speak of centuries-old wealth, provides elegant backdrop for conversations that will determine who controls the family's telecommunications empire. Lee Dong-wook sits in the place of honor, his authority unquestioned despite not being the eldest son. Around the low wooden table, 8 family members represent various branches of inherited influence, each one calculating how Junho's rebellion threatens their personal stakes in Lee Group's continued dominance. The joint venture proposal arrived at midnight, Dong-wook announces, sliding copies of Junho and Kendra's contract across the table. 27 pages of idealistic nonsense that reduces profit margins and surrenders operational control to foreign interference. Aunt Soo-jin, the family's real estate matriarch, reviews the document with practiced skepticism. Community partnership requirements, local hiring mandates. This reads like social work, not business strategy. Exactly the point, Uncle Hyun-woo adds, his investment banking background evident in the way he processes financial implications. 43% margins reduced to 18%. Shareholders will revolt. Cousin Tae-jun leans forward with the smooth aggression of someone who spent his career waiting for opportunity to advance his own ambitions. The media attention alone has damaged stock price. International partners question Junho's competence. Perhaps it's time for new leadership. Careful, Dong-wook warns, though his tone carries calculation rather than genuine caution. Junho is still family. Family that prioritizes American sentiments over Korean interests, Tae-jun continues. Father's vision was clear: expand globally while maintaining cultural superiority. This partnership suggests surrender to foreign values. In the main room, Yoon Mi-kyung sits in careful silence, her presence tolerated rather than welcomed at these family councils. As Junho's mother, she holds no official power, yet her quiet observations have witnessed 3 decades of Lee family politics. Tonight, she recognizes the orchestrated nature of unanimous opposition to her son's initiative. Mi-kyung, Dong-wook addresses her with formal politeness that maintains hierarchy while requesting contribution. You know Junho best. Can you explain this unusual decision? She considers her words carefully, understanding that this moment requires diplomatic precision. My son honors his father's memory by serving communities rather than exploiting them. His father built this company through strength, not accommodation. His father built this company by recognizing opportunity where others saw only obstacles. Mi-kyung's voice carries gentle firmness. Perhaps this partnership represents similar vision. The room's energy shifts subtly. Family members exchange glances that communicate volumes about succession planning, inheritance distribution, and the delicate balance between respecting elders and maintaining power structures. With respect, Tae-jun says, his tone managing condescension despite formal courtesy. Emotional attachments compromise business judgment. The American CEO has clearly influenced Junho's decision-making. The American CEO, Mi-kyung replies, has challenged him to honor principles his father would have admired. Or she's manipulated him into betraying everything his father built. The accusation hangs in the air like incense, traditional forms masking modern power struggles. Dong-wook allows the silence to extend, letting family pressure build around Mi-kyung's isolated position. Across Seoul, in a hotel suite that serves as war room, Kendra faces her own family tribunal. Richard Sterling's presence, delivered through high-definition video connection, dominates the space with expensive authority and poorly concealed fury. The joint venture proposal, he announces without preamble, represents the most significant breach of fiduciary responsibility in company history. Board member Catherine Hayes leans into frame, her silver hair and designer suit broadcasting decades of inherited wealth. Kendra, we supported your social impact initiatives when they generated positive publicity, but this Korean situation threatens fundamental business principles. Which principles? Kendra asks evenly. Serving communities or serving shareholders? Serving the people who invested millions in your company expecting reasonable returns. Richard's voice carries the edge of someone whose patience has expired. 18% margins are insulting to investors who could achieve higher yields through index funds. 18% margins, Kendra counters, allow sustainable community partnerships that generate long-term value rather than short-term extraction. Sustainable partnerships don't pay salaries or fund research and development. Maya sits beside Kendra, tablet ready, expression professionally neutral despite personal loyalty that spans 7 years of building something meaningful together. She's watched investors pressure her boss to compromise principles for profit, seen communities damaged by technology deployed without respect for human dignity. Furthermore, Catherine continues, your personal relationship with their CEO suggests compromised objectivity that violates ethical guidelines. Personal relationship? Kendra's voice sharpens. We had professional conversations that gossip columnists transformed into romantic speculation. Speculation that damaged company reputation and raised questions about your judgment. The video conference continues for 40 minutes, each board member presenting variations of the same ultimatum: abandon the partnership, return to conventional profit maximization, or face removal from company leadership. When the call ends, Kendra and Maya sit in silence, processing implications that extend far beyond quarterly earnings. Outside their windows, Seoul continues its ancient dance of ambition and survival, millions of people pursuing their own complex negotiations with integrity and expedience. Options? Maya asks quietly. Fight for the partnership and lose company support, or surrender the partnership and betray everything we've built. Third option? Kendra moves to the window, city lights reflecting her own uncertain face. Find investors who understand that sustainable profit serves communities, not just capital. That could take years. Everything worthwhile takes time. Kendra turns back to Maya, decision crystallizing despite uncertain odds. We're keeping the partnership. If the current board won't support ethical business practices, we'll find one that will. They'll fight back. Let them. Some battles are worth losing if they define who we choose to become. At the Lee estate, the family meeting reaches its inevitable conclusion. Dong-wook calls for formal vote on removing Junho from CEO position pending medical evaluation and strategic realignment. The motion passes 7-1, with only Mi-kyung dissenting. Effective immediately, Dong-wook announces, Tae-jun assumes interim leadership responsibilities. Junho will receive medical attention for stress-related decision-making impairment. But Mi-kyung's quiet voice cuts through the family's celebration. Before you celebrate destroying my son's career, perhaps you should review the evidence I've collected over the past 2 years. She places a manila folder on the table. its contents promising revelations that could reshape the family's understanding of loyalty, betrayal, and the true legacy of Lee Group's founder. Inside that folder lies proof that Dong-wook systematically sabotaged his brother's business initiatives, manipulated family decisions for personal gain, and violated the trust that should bind generations together. The folder sits between them like a bomb waiting to detonate. In the Lee family's ancestral Hanok, traditional architecture witnesses a modern reckoning as Yoon Mi-kyung's careful documentation threatens to destroy decades of carefully maintained deception. 2 years ago, Mi-kyung begins, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she's about to reveal. My husband left instructions for me to review company finances if anything happened to him. He was already ill, though he hid it from everyone except me. The family members shift uncomfortably, unused to being lectured by someone they've always dismissed as politically irrelevant. But the folder's presence commands attention, its thickness suggesting comprehensive evidence rather than emotional speculation. What kind of instructions? Dong-wook asks, his authority suddenly less certain. Mi-kyung opens the folder with deliberate care, revealing bank statements, email printouts, legal documents organized with the precision of someone who spent 2 years building an airtight case. Financial transfers, she says, placing the first set of documents on the table. From Lee Group subsidiary accounts to shell companies registered in your name, brother-in-law. Exactly 73 million won, moved in increments small enough to avoid automatic reporting. The room's energy transforms instantly. Cousin Taijun leans forward, studying bank statements that reveal systematic financial manipulation. Aunt Sujin's expression shifts from supportive authority to careful neutrality as she processes implications for her own inherited holdings. These are misinterpretations, Dong-wook says, though his voice lacks its usual confidence. Legitimate consulting fees for strategic advisory work. Consulting fees, Mi-kyung continues, placing additional documents on the table. For sabotaging your brother's renewable energy initiative. Email correspondence with competitors, revealing proprietary information that led to contract failures. She slides printed emails across the wooden surface, each one a digital confession of corporate betrayal. The communications detail systematic undermining of Lee Group's green technology ventures, initiatives that would have positioned the company as an environmental leader while honoring the founder's vision of serving communities. Furthermore, Mi-kyung's voice remains steady as she presents additional evidence. Manipulation of board decisions through strategic misinformation. Your brother believed family loyalty meant trusting your judgment. He never suspected you were positioning yourself as his successor while actively damaging his legacy. Uncle Hyunwoo examines the documents with the skeptical precision of someone who spent decades in investment banking. These, if authentic, suggest systematic fraud. They're authentic, Mi-kyung replies, verified by forensic accountants and legal experts who spent 18 months analyzing Lee Group's financial records. Everything documented according to Korean corporate law standards. Taijun's earlier confidence evaporates as he processes the implications. His own ambitions for company leadership depend on maintaining the narrative of Dong-wook as loyal family guardian rather than manipulative usurper. The renewable energy contracts alone, Mi-kyung continues, would have generated 2 billion won annually by now. Instead, your sabotage forced the company to abandon clean technology leadership and focus on traditional telecommunications infrastructure. Why reveal this now? Aunt Sujin asks quietly, her question carrying the weight of someone calculating personal risks and family power struggles. Because my son faces the same choice his father confronted, Mi-kyung replies, her voice softening slightly. Honor the family's actual values, or surrender to the people who destroyed them. She places the final set of documents on the table, evidence that transforms tonight's family meeting from succession planning into criminal revelation. Bank transfers from your accounts, Dong-wook, to Richard Sterling's consulting firm. 3 payments of $50,000 each, made 2 weeks before the American board started pressuring CEO Wallace to abandon the partnership. The silence that follows contains decades of accumulated resentment, betrayal, and the slow recognition that family loyalty has been weaponized to protect corruption rather than preserve legacy. You paid Sterling to sabotage the negotiation, Taejun says, understanding finally that his uncle's machinations extend beyond family politics into international corporate manipulation. I protected family interests from foreign interference, Dong-wook replies, but his authority crumbles under the weight of documented evidence. You protected your control by destroying my husband's vision and my son's future, Mi-kyung counters, gathering the documents with quiet satisfaction. Everything my husband built was about serving communities through technological innovation. You turned it into a traditional chaebol focused on profit extraction. The family members exchange glances that communicate volumes about succession planning, inheritance distribution, and the delicate balance between Korean business traditions and ethical leadership. What do you want? Dong-wook asks, recognizing that his position has become untenable. I want my son to lead this company the way his father intended, with integrity, community focus, and respect for partnership rather than domination. Mi-kyung stands, her presence commanding despite decades of enforced silence in family councils. The choice is simple: support Junho's leadership and the American partnership, or face criminal prosecution for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. The folder closes with finality, its contents having accomplished what 2 years of careful documentation intended: the complete transformation of family power dynamics and the restoration of Lee Group's founding principles. Outside, Seoul continues its ancient dance of tradition and progress, millions of people navigating their own complex negotiations between inherited expectations and earned integrity. But inside the Hanok, 8 family members confront the reality that legacy isn't about preserving power structures, but about honoring the values that created them in the first place. The emergency board meeting at Lee Group headquarters convenes at dawn. Glass towers reflecting Seoul's awakening energy as corporate titans gather to address revelations that threaten generational power structures. In the mahogany-paneled boardroom where family decisions have shaped Korean business for decades, evidence of systematic fraud demands immediate response. Junho enters the room with newfound authority, carrying his mother's folder and Park Min-seok's additional documentation that transforms family accusations into criminal evidence. The 8 board members, men who've spent careers protecting Lee Group's interests, face a choice between enabling corruption or embracing accountability. The evidence against my uncle is comprehensive, Junho announces, his voice steady despite the magnitude of family betrayal he's revealing. 73 million won in unauthorized transfers, sabotage of renewable energy initiatives, conspiracy with foreign board members to manipulate international negotiations. Director Park Byung-ho studies the financial documents with the careful attention of someone who recognizes that corporate survival depends on swift, decisive action. If these allegations prove accurate, the legal implications extend beyond family disputes into criminal liability. They're not allegations, Park Min-seok interjects, distributing additional evidence he's compiled over months of suspicious observations. Forensic accounting confirms systematic embezzlement. Documented email correspondence proves intentional sabotage. Bank records verify foreign payment schemes. Executive Vice President Choi Young-min leans forward, processing implications that extend far beyond immediate family politics. The Korean Financial Supervisory Service has increased scrutiny of chaebol governance following recent fraud cases. Covering up these activities would constitute additional criminal exposure. Furthermore, Junho continues, the American partnership represents our opportunity to restore this company's founding mission: community-focused technology deployment, sustainable profit margins, international collaboration based on mutual respect, rather than cultural domination. Finance Director Kim Soo-jung examines profit projections that demonstrate long-term value of ethical business practices. Reduced margins in the short term, but enhanced reputation and sustainable growth potential outweigh immediate financial concerns. The boardroom debate continues for 2 hours, each director weighing personal loyalties against corporate survival, traditional power structures against contemporary accountability standards. Outside the windows, Seoul's business district bustles with millions of people whose lives intersect with Lee Group's decisions in ways they'll never understand. The vote, Junho announces when discussion concludes, is whether to support criminal prosecution of Lee Dong-wook and proceed with the American partnership, or maintain current leadership structures and face potential regulatory investigation. The result, 7 votes supporting prosecution and partnership, 1 abstention, marks not just corporate governance change, but cultural evolution within Korea's business elite. Across town, at the hotel conference room serving as Kyungrae's temporary headquarters, similar reckonings unfold via video connections that span continents and challenge fundamental assumptions about investor priorities. The evidence Maya compiled, Kyungrae announces to her reconvened board, demonstrates that Richard Sterling accepted payments from Korean sources to sabotage our negotiation. 3 transfers of $50,000 each, designed to pressure me into abandoning community partnership requirements. Board member Catherine Hayes examines bank records with the horrified fascination of someone discovering that trusted colleagues harbor criminal intentions. Richard, these payments violate every ethical standard for board service. On screen, Sterling's expensive suit and carefully styled appearance can't disguise the trapped expression of someone whose corruption has been thoroughly documented. The payments were consulting fees for strategic advisory services. Strategic advisory services, Kyungrae replies. That involved pressuring me to abandon contractual safeguards protecting educational communities in favor of maximizing profit margins through exploitation. Maya presents additional evidence, email correspondence between Sterling and Lee Dong-wook, telephone records confirming conspiracy to manipulate international business negotiations, financial transfers that violate both American and Korean corporate law. The choice, Kyungrae tells her board, is between ethical business practices that serve communities and maximize long-term value, or continued association with board members who accept foreign payments to influence corporate decisions. The vote removes Richard Sterling from company leadership and endorses the Korean partnership with its community safeguard requirements intact. Furthermore, Kyungrae continues as the virtual meeting concludes, we're expanding our international initiatives. The joint venture with Lee Group represents a model for technology deployment that serves human dignity rather than exploiting economic desperation. By afternoon, both companies have issued joint statements announcing leadership changes, criminal referrals for prosecution, and commitment to partnership agreements that prioritize community benefit over maximum profit extraction. The Seoul press conference, held in the same Lee Jin Tower conference room where their first confrontation occurred, draws international media attention, focused on the unusual spectacle of corporate leaders voluntarily reducing profit margins to increase social impact. The partnership, Junho explains to assembled journalists, represents my father's vision of technology serving communities rather than extracting value from them. Profit margins matter less than sustainable relationships with the people our infrastructure is designed to serve. Kyungrae adds, when we choose respect over rules, we discover that ethical business practices generate more meaningful success than short-term financial optimization. The questions from reporters focus predictably on romantic speculation, but both CEOs redirect attention consistently toward community impact, sustainable business models, and the possibility of international collaboration based on mutual respect, rather than cultural dominance. That evening, as Seoul's lights reflect off rain-slicked streets and the city settles into its nightly rhythm of ambition and survival, Junho and Kyungrae meet once more in the hotel bar, where their professional relationship first shifted toward something more personal. 2 months ago, Kyungrae observes, swirling wine in her glass, we were adversaries representing competing approaches to business ethics. Tonight we're partners who chose integrity over family approval and community service over investor pressure, Junho replies, studying her face in the bar's warm lighting. The question is whether we can build something sustainable from these decisions. Outside, 8 million people navigate Seoul's complex networks of tradition and progress, family loyalty and individual dreams, inherited expectations and earned convictions. But inside this quiet space, 2 people who chose each other's respect over their own comfort contemplate what kind of future they want to create together. The partnership contract sits between them, signed and sealed, but the deeper question remains: what happens when business collaboration becomes something that honors both professional excellence and personal connection. 3 weeks after the press conference that shattered 2 family empires, Kendra stands in the computer lab at Gangbok Elementary, watching 10-year-old Seo-jun explain email basics to his grandmother via video call to her apartment across Seoul. The refurbished equipment hums with reliable efficiency, maintained by local technicians, trained through the joint venture's community partnership program. Principal Kim Jung-soo approaches with the satisfied expression of an educator whose faith in institutional change has been rewarded by tangible results. The internet connection hasn't failed once since the new infrastructure was installed, he reports in improving English. And the teachers... He gestures toward the adjacent classroom where Ms. Park confidently guides students through coding exercises she learned during mandatory instructor training. The difference is support, Kendra explains, noting how technological implementation paired with human investment transforms educational possibilities. Equipment without empowerment just creates expensive disappointment. Through the lab windows, she observes Junho arriving with Park Min-seok and a small team of Korean technicians who conduct monthly maintenance reviews, not as corporate obligation, but as community partnership. His presence here reflects personal commitment rather than executive performance. Someone who understands that sustainable business requires authentic relationships with the people it serves. Their greeting is professionally appropriate, yet warmly familiar. The careful balance of 2 people whose business partnership has evolved into something neither initially anticipated, but both increasingly value. The quarterly reports, Min-seok announces during their impromptu meeting in the principal's office, show 23% higher satisfaction ratings compared to our previous educational contracts. Response times improved dramatically, teacher confidence increased, student technology literacy advanced 6 months ahead of projections. Because, Junho adds, we're measuring success by community outcomes rather than profit optimization. Principal Kim nods with the deep satisfaction of someone whose professional dreams are finally supported by institutional resources. The children believe technology can help them rather than confuse them. This changes everything about how they approach learning. In the corner, Grandmother Kim, the elderly woman from the community center, helps her grandson with mathematics homework, both of them using skills learned through evening programs that bridge generational digital divides. Their quiet collaboration speaks of technology serving human connection rather than replacing it. The Seoul pilot program, Kendra notes, reviewing implementation data on her tablet, demonstrates scalability potential across Southeast Asia. Communities respond positively when technology deployment includes cultural respect, local employment, ongoing support. My mother suggested expanding the model internationally, Junho mentions, his reference to Mi Kyung carrying new respect for her business insights previously dismissed by family power structures. Indonesian schools, Philippine rural districts, Vietnamese community centers. With local partnership requirements built into every contract, Kendra adds, ensuring their conversation maintains focus on community benefit rather than market expansion. Their professional discussion continues through afternoon site visits. 3 additional Seoul schools where joint venture infrastructure supports student learning without overwhelming local resources. Each location demonstrates the same pattern. Technology implemented with cultural sensitivity and ongoing support generates educational success, teacher satisfaction, community ownership of digital resources. By evening, their work relationship has evolved through shared observation of positive impact into something that transcends mere business collaboration. Walking through Hongdae District, where university students blend traditional Korean culture with international influences, they navigate conversations that address both professional planning and personal connection. 6 months ago, Junho observes as they pause beside Hongik University's campus, I signed contracts based on profit projections and family expectations. Tonight, I'm planning educational initiatives based on community needs and personal conviction. 6 months ago, Kendra replies, I negotiated deals while fighting board pressure and investor skepticism. Tonight, I'm designing international programs with a partner who shares my values. They settle into a quiet restaurant that serves traditional Korean cuisine alongside international dishes, bibimbap and pasta, kimchi and cheese, cultural fusion that mirrors their own collaboration between American social impact principles and Korean business infrastructure. The question, Junho continues over dinner that spans two culinary traditions, is whether what we've built professionally can support something more personal. Kendra considers his words while processing the complexity of cross-cultural relationships that extend beyond business partnership into emotional territory neither of them has previously navigated. That depends on whether we can honor both professional excellence and personal authenticity without compromising either. "My mother approves of you," he mentions with a slight smile. "She says you remind her of my father's best qualities: principled, determined, focused on serving others rather than accumulating power. Maya likes you too. Says you're the first CEO she's met who asks better questions about community impact than profit margins." Their conversation continues through evening walks along Cheongyecheon, Seoul's restored urban stream that flows between towering glass facades and traditional architecture. The waterway itself represents successful balance between preserving cultural heritage and embracing urban development, a metaphor for their own attempt to honor different backgrounds while building something entirely new together. "If we do this," Kendra says as they pause on a bridge that spans the stream, city lights reflecting off moving water, "we're not just combining two companies or two cultures. We're creating something that requires both professional and personal integration. Are you prepared for that level of complexity?" She studies his expression in the bridge's lighting, searching for the genuine concern beneath formal politeness. "Are you prepared to disappoint people who expect you to choose Korean traditions over international partnership?" "I've already disappointed them. The question is whether I can build something meaningful from their disappointment." Above them, Seoul's skyline stretches endlessly, 8 million people pursuing their own negotiations between inherited expectations and individual dreams, family loyalty and personal authenticity, cultural preservation and innovative adaptation. "Then we're partners," Kendra says, extending her hand for a handshake that acknowledges both business collaboration and personal commitment. "Professional and personal." "Partners," Junho agrees, accepting her gesture with the formal precision of someone sealing a contract and the genuine warmth of someone choosing trust despite uncertain outcomes. Their handshake, witnessed only by Seoul's endless lights and flowing water, marks not just the expansion of their business relationship, but the foundation of something neither had planned, yet both recognize as inevitable. The Lee family hanok has been transformed from fortress of traditional authority into space for contemporary conversation. Yoon Mi-kyung sits across from Kendra in the main room where generations of patriarchal decisions once shaped Korean business dynasties. But today's discussion focuses on integration rather than domination, partnership rather than hierarchy. In traditional Korean families, Mi-kyung explains in careful English, gesturing toward silk cushions arranged for comfortable conversation rather than formal presentation. The mother-in-law evaluates prospective daughters-in-law based on their ability to preserve family honor while serving household needs. Kendra adjusts her posture respectfully, understanding that this conversation represents cultural bridge building rather than mere social courtesy. In African American families, particularly those focused on professional advancement, we evaluate relationships based on mutual support for individual achievement and shared commitment to community service. Different priorities, Mi-kyung observes with gentle humor, but perhaps compatible values. They share tea prepared according to Korean ceremony, yet served with the informal warmth of two women discovering unexpected common ground. Around them, traditional architecture frames modern discussion of how family structures can evolve to support rather than constrain individual dreams. Junho has never brought anyone home, Mi-kyung continues, her observation carrying maternal insight rather than romantic speculation. Not because he lacks social connections, but because he understood that family approval often requires surrendering personal authenticity. "I've never dated someone whose career decisions affect international business relationships," Kendra admits. "The complexity is significant." "Complexity," Mi-kyung replies with the satisfied smile of someone who spent decades navigating similar challenges, becomes manageable when both people prioritize honesty over convenience. Their conversation continues through afternoon discussion of cultural integration strategies, how Korean respect traditions can honor rather than subordinate American independence, how business partnership can strengthen rather than complicate personal relationships, how family expectations can evolve to support rather than constrain individual happiness. The media attention will intensify, Mi-kyung warns gently. Korean society remains fascinated by international relationships, particularly when they involve prominent business leaders. American investors will question my judgment, Kendra responds. Corporate boards prefer CEOs whose personal lives don't generate headlines. Then we ensure that headlines focus on business success rather than romantic speculation. By evening, their discussion has established protocols for managing public attention while protecting personal privacy, strategies that acknowledge cultural curiosity without surrendering relationship authenticity to media demands. Across town, in the renovated community center that serves as evening campus for working families, Junho and David Park review expansion plans that demonstrate how successful integration creates opportunities for broader social impact. The joint venture model, David explains, consulting his tablet while elderly students practice computer skills in the background, generates sustainable funding for programs that Korean government initiatives couldn't maintain long-term. Because, Junho notes, observing Mrs. Kim successfully completing video call setup with her Canadian grandchildren, profit margins support rather than exploit educational needs. The evening class continues around them, 23 people of various ages learning technology skills that connect them to opportunities, relationships, information previously inaccessible due to digital literacy barriers. Their patient progress reflects successful integration of technological capabilities with human dignity. Mr. Huang starts his new customer service position next week, David reports, indicating the middle-aged man whose factory layoff transformed into technology career opportunity through community center training. His daughter received early admission to Seoul National University, says family success began here, with learning that honored their dignity. These aren't corporate social responsibility statistics, Junho observes. Their individual lives improved through business practices that serve human flourishing. Exactly what your father envisioned when he started Lee Group. Their conversation shifts toward expansion planning that balances growth potential with community focus, additional Seoul locations, rural district programs, international partnerships that replicate successful integration models across Southeast Asia. The question, Junho says as they lock computers and stack chairs at evening's conclusion, is whether we can scale human dignity along with technological infrastructure. That depends on whether we maintain partnership principles regardless of company size. Walking through Seoul's evening energy toward the hotel, where personal and professional planning will continue, Junho processes the day's cultural bridge building with satisfaction that transcends business achievement. His relationship with Kendra represents successful integration, not just between companies or cultures, but between inherited expectations and chosen values. At the hotel bar where their professional relationship first evolved toward personal connection, they meet for conversations that address both international expansion strategies and cross-cultural relationship development. Your mother approves, Kendra notes with slight surprise, having expected more complex negotiations with Korean family structures. She recognizes authentic partnership when she observes it, Junho replies. My father chose her despite family pressure toward traditional arranged marriage. She understands the difference between relationship choices that serve family honor versus those that serve individual happiness. Maya thinks we're either building something unprecedented or setting ourselves up for spectacular failure. Probably both. His smile carries the confidence of someone who's learned to choose meaningful risks over comfortable certainty. The question is whether we prefer predictable mediocrity or uncertain excellence. Their evening discussion continues through shared planning of business expansion that serves community needs, cultural integration strategies that honor both backgrounds, personal relationship development that strengthens rather than competes with professional partnership. If we do this correctly, Kendra observes as Seoul's lights reflect off their table's surface, we're creating a model for international collaboration that prioritizes mutual respect over cultural dominance. And if we fail, we'll fail while attempting something worthwhile rather than succeeding at something meaningless. Above them, Seoul's skyline pulses with 8 million individual dreams, each person navigating complex negotiations between tradition and innovation, family loyalty and personal authenticity, inherited expectations and earned convictions. But in this quiet space, two people who chose integration over domination plan expansion that honors communities while building something together that neither could create alone. The Seoul International Convention Center hosts Korea's most prestigious annual business summit, where corporate leaders from across Asia gather to discuss economic integration, technological innovation, and strategic partnerships that shape regional development. This year's keynote presentation, delivered jointly by Lee Jun-ho and Kendra Wallace, draws international media attention focused on their unprecedented collaboration between Korean chaebol infrastructure and American social impact methodology. The auditorium seats 1,200 business leaders, government officials, academic researchers, and journalists representing interests that span continents and currencies. On stage, beneath lighting that transforms personal vulnerability into public authority, Jun-ho and Kendra prepare to announce expansion plans that will either revolutionize educational technology deployment or demonstrate the limitations of idealistic business practices. 6 months ago, Jun-ho begins, his voice carrying across the vast space with practiced confidence. Lee Group operated according to traditional chaebol principles, maximizing shareholder returns through efficient resource extraction, minimizing operational costs through standardized service delivery. 6 months ago, Kendra continues seamlessly, their presentation synchronized through weeks of collaborative preparation. My company struggled to balance investor demands for profit optimization with community needs for sustainable technology support. The audience, predominantly male, overwhelmingly focused on quarterly earnings and market dominance, listens with polite skepticism to business leaders voluntarily reducing profit margins in service of social impact. Today, Jun-ho announces, our joint venture serves 43 schools across Seoul, employs 200 local technicians, provides ongoing teacher training that ensures sustainable educational technology integration. With profit margins, Kendra adds, consulting her tablet for precise financial data, reduced from 43% to 18%, yet generating higher customer satisfaction, improved employee retention, enhanced community relationships that support long-term business sustainability. On the presentation screen behind them, images document their impact. Elementary students confidently navigating educational software, elderly community center participants connecting with distant family members, teachers integrating technology into lesson plans they design rather than scripts they follow. The question, Jun-ho continues, becomes whether business success requires choosing between financial optimization and community service, or whether sustainable profit depends on ethical integration of both priorities. Executive Vice President Kim from Samsung leans forward in the front row, his expression reflecting the skeptical interest of someone calculating competitive implications. Mr. Lee, these community partnership requirements presumably increase operational complexity. How do you maintain efficiency across multiple international markets? By measuring efficiency through community outcomes rather than cost reduction, Kendra responds. 18% margins sustained across 3 years outperform 43% margins that generate customer dissatisfaction and contract termination. Furthermore, Jun-ho adds, local technician training reduces long-term maintenance costs while providing employment opportunities that strengthen community relationships with our infrastructure. The questions continue for 30 minutes. Detailed inquiries about scalability, profitability, competitive advantage, regulatory compliance. Each response demonstrates how ethical business practices generate sustainable value rather than short-term extraction, how international partnerships can honor cultural differences rather than imposing uniform standards. Finance Director Park from LG raises her hand with particular interest. Ms. Wallace, your board's support for reduced profit margins suggests American investors increasingly value social impact. Is this sustainable when quarterly earnings disappoint traditional expectations? Our investor base evolved, Kendra explains, from those seeking maximum short-term returns to those understanding that sustainable business requires community partnership. Long-term value creation attracts different capital than short-term profit extraction. Which brings us, Junho says, advancing to the presentation's climactic announcement, to our expansion plans. The screen displays a map of Southeast Asia, highlighting 12 countries where educational infrastructure needs intersect with technological capabilities: Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Singapore, Brunei, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. 200,000 students, Kendra announces, across educational institutions that currently lack reliable technology infrastructure, teacher training resources, ongoing technical support. Local partnership requirements built into every contract, Junho adds, ensuring that international technology deployment creates employment, develops capabilities, honors cultural values, rather than imposing foreign standards. The audience responds with the careful attention of business leaders calculating both opportunity and risk. International expansion represents significant revenue potential, yet community partnership requirements complicate traditional operational models that maximize efficiency through standardization. Project timeline extends 5 years, Kendra continues, with implementation priorities determined by community readiness rather than market size. We serve educational needs first, profit optimization second. Investment requirements total $800 million initially, generating projected revenues of $2.4 billion across the 5-year timeline, with 18% profit margins maintained throughout. The financial projections balance ambitious growth with sustainable profitability, demonstrating that ethical business practices can achieve competitive returns while serving communities rather than exploiting them. During the post-presentation reception, conversations cluster around implications for regional business practices, competitive responses from traditional chaebols, investor interest in social impact methodologies that generate measurable returns. Junho and Kendra navigate these discussions with professional collaboration that draws additional media attention. Two leaders whose business partnership has evolved into something that transcends mere strategic alliance. The romantic angle, whispers entertainment journalist Kim So-young to her photographer, sells more magazines than business strategy coverage. But their interactions remain focused on professional content rather than personal speculation, redirecting attention consistently toward community impact, sustainable business models, international collaboration based on mutual respect. Mr. Lee approaches venture capital executive David Chang with frank curiosity. Your family's traditional business practices emphasized hierarchical control, cultural preservation, profit maximization. This partnership suggests fundamental philosophical change. My father built Lee Group to create opportunities rather than extract resources, Junho responds. This partnership honors his actual values rather than preserving structures that contradicted them. And Ms. Wallace, American social impact companies typically operate in domestic markets. International expansion into Asian business cultures represents significant complexity. Complexity becomes manageable through partnership with leaders who share ethical priorities, Kendra replies, her response acknowledging both challenge and solution. Sustainable success requires cultural integration, not cultural domination. Their public presentation concludes with standing ovation that reflects both professional respect and personal curiosity about two leaders who chose collaboration over competition, community service over profit maximization, authentic partnership over strategic positioning. Walking through Seoul's evening energy toward dinner that will continue professional planning alongside personal relationship development, they process the day's public declaration with satisfaction that transcends business achievement. 2,000 people now understand our expansion plans, Kendra observes, noting how public commitment creates accountability for community-focused business practices. 2,000 people now understand that we're building something together, Junho adds, acknowledging how professional partnership has become personal commitment, witnessed by international business community. Above them, Seoul's skyline stretches endlessly, 8 million dreams pursuing individual paths through shared urban space, each person navigating complex negotiations between inherited expectations and chosen values, traditional structures and innovative possibilities. But tonight, Two people who chose each other professionally and personally have announced their commitment not just to business expansion, but to demonstrating that love and legacy can honor communities while creating sustainable success. The crisis arrives on a Tuesday morning through simultaneous phone calls that transform routine business operations into existential threats. In Kyungrae's Seoul hotel suite, Maya's urgent voice cuts through breakfast planning. CNN International picked up the Korean tabloid story. They're running it in 20 minutes. Across town, Park Min-seok delivers equally devastating news to Jun-ho. The Japan Times published speculation about your personal relationship affecting business judgment. Stock price dropped 8% in early trading. The headline, splashed across international business media in multiple languages, reduces two accomplished CEOs to tabloid speculation. Love or liability. Korean chaebol heir's romance threatens billion-dollar education deal. The article combines truth with sensationalism in ways that threaten both their professional reputations and their company's stockholder confidence. Photographs from business dinners become intimate romantic encounters. Professional collaboration transforms into compromised objectivity. Strategic partnership appears as personal relationship prioritized over shareholder interests. Within hours, their joint venture faces coordinated attacks from multiple directions. In New York, emergency board meetings convene to address leadership crisis at Kyungrae's company. Former board member Richard Sterling, despite his criminal referral for accepting foreign payments, appears on financial news networks suggesting that CEO Wallace's emotional involvement with Korean business leaders demonstrates fundamental judgment failure. She's prioritizing personal relationships over company interests, Sterling declares to Bloomberg Television, his expensive suit and practiced authority masking the desperation of someone whose corruption has been exposed. International negotiations require objectivity, not romantic attachment. In Seoul, Lee Dong-wook coordinates similar attacks through business connections he's cultivated over decades of chaebol politics. Despite facing criminal prosecution for embezzlement and conspiracy, he maintains influence through family networks and corporate relationships that value traditional authority over ethical accountability. My nephew's decision-making has been compromised by foreign influence, he tells Chosun Ilbo reporters, his statement carefully phrased to suggest both personal and professional betrayal. Korean business interests require Korean leadership priorities. The coordinated media assault generates precisely the crisis both former board members seek: investor panic that threatens stock prices, shareholder confidence, board support for current leadership. By afternoon, emergency meetings convene simultaneously in Seoul and New York. At Lee Group headquarters, 8 board members gather in the familiar mahogany-paneled room where family decisions have shaped Korean business for decades. But today's discussion focuses on crisis management rather than strategic planning. Stock price has declined 12%, Finance Director Kim Soo-jung reports, consulting her tablet with professional concern. International investors are questioning leadership stability. Domestic partners are reconsidering contract commitments. The media attention, ads director Park Byung-ho, suggests that personal relationships are compromising business judgment. Shareholders expect reassurance about CEO priorities. Jun-ho sits at the head of the table his father once commanded, processing pressure that tests every decision he's made since choosing partnership over traditional profit maximization. The expansion plans remain viable, he responds calmly. Community partnership requirements generate sustainable revenue. International collaboration serves long-term strategic interests. Social impact methodology creates competitive advantage in emerging markets. But, interrupts Executive Vice President Choi Young-min, personal relationship speculation undermines stakeholder confidence in objective decision-making. Personal relationships, Jun-ho replies with firmness that surprises several board members, don't compromise professional judgment when both people share ethical business priorities. The debate continues through 2 hours of complex navigation between corporate governance requirements, shareholder expectations, media pressure, and personal integrity. Each board member weighs loyalty to current leadership against pressure from investors who expect predictable profit maximization over innovative community service. Across continents, Kyungrae faces parallel challenges via video conference connections that span time zones and currencies. The Korean situation has become a liability, announces Catherine Hayes, her silver hair and designer suit broadcasting decades of inherited wealth and traditional expectations. Board members question whether personal involvement affects business objectivity. Personal involvement, Kendra responds evenly, consists of professional collaboration with someone who shares my commitment to sustainable business practices that serve communities rather than exploit them. Sustainable business practices, interjects investor Michael Rodriguez from his Chicago office, that reduce profit margins and complicate operational efficiency. 18% margins maintained across 3 years, Kendra counters with precise financial data. Outperform traditional models that generate short-term profit through community extraction, followed by contract termination and reputation damage. The video conference continues through detailed analysis of financial projections, market positioning, competitive advantage, stakeholder expectations. Each investor calculates personal risk associated with supporting leadership under media scrutiny versus potential returns from innovative business methodology. The question, Catherine declares as discussion concludes, becomes whether to maintain current leadership during crisis or implement changes that restore investor confidence. The question, Kendra replies with quiet authority, becomes whether we build companies that serve communities while generating sustainable profit, or surrender ethical principles whenever external pressure threatens short-term financial performance. The board votes by slim margin to maintain current leadership pending resolution of media crisis and demonstration of continued business success. But the real test arrives that evening, when Junho and Kendra meet privately to address implications that extend beyond corporate governance into personal commitment. In the hotel bar where their relationship first evolved from professional collaboration toward personal connection, they face the moment that defines whether their partnership can survive coordinated attacks designed to destroy both their careers and their capacity to trust each other. The media coverage, Kendra begins carefully, threatens everything we've built professionally. The board pressure, Junho responds with equal caution, questions whether personal relationships compromise business judgment. They sit across from each other in the space where honest conversation first revealed shared values. But tonight's discussion carries the weight of decisions that will determine not just their immediate future, but their capacity to continue building something together that honors both professional excellence and personal authenticity. We have 3 options, Kendra continues, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she's about to propose. End our personal relationship to protect our business partnership. End our business partnership to protect our personal relationship. Or maintain both while demonstrating that ethical leaders can integrate professional and personal integrity. Option 3, Junho says without hesitation, requires accepting that some battles are worth fighting even when victory isn't guaranteed. Option 3 requires trusting each other enough to weather attacks designed to destroy that trust. Then we choose option 3, he replies, extending his hand across the table in the gesture that first sealed their business partnership and now confirms their personal commitment. Professional and personal, together. Together, she agrees, accepting his handshake with the formal precision of someone sealing a contract and the genuine warmth of someone choosing love despite uncertain outcomes. Outside, Seoul's endless lights reflect their decision to build something together that no external pressure can destroy, a partnership based on shared values rather than convenient circumstances, authentic connection rather than strategic positioning. 6 months later, the Seoul International Education Summit hosts the largest gathering of technology leaders, government officials, and community organizers in Asian history. The COEX Convention Center, filled with 3,000 delegates from 47 countries, witnesses the announcement that will define the future of educational technology deployment across developing economies. On stage, beneath lights that transform personal vulnerability into public authority, Kendra and Junho prepare to reveal expansion results that either validate their community partnership model or demonstrate the limitations of idealistic business practices. 18 months ago, Junho begins, his voice carrying across the vast auditorium with confidence earned through surviving coordinated attacks on his leadership. Lee Group operated according to traditional chaebol principles, maximizing shareholder returns through efficient resource extraction. 18 months ago, Kendra continues with seamless collaboration that demonstrates professional partnership strengthened rather than weakened by personal commitment. My company struggled to balance investor demands with community needs. Behind them, the massive screen displays a map of Southeast Asia, where green indicators mark successful implementation sites. 237 schools across 12 countries, each one representing educational technology deployed with cultural respect, local employment, ongoing support that honors community dignity. Today, Kendra announces, our joint venture serves 400,000 students, employs 3,000 local technicians, provides teacher training that ensures sustainable educational integration rather than temporary technological excitement. With profit margins, Junho adds, consulting precise financial data that silences critics who predicted community partnership requirements would destroy business viability, maintained at 19% across all international markets, generating customer satisfaction rates 47% higher than industry standards. The audience, representing governments seeking educational solutions, investors calculating returns, communities hoping for authentic partnership rather than exploitative contracts, responds with attention that reflects both professional interest and personal curiosity about leaders whose relationship survived international media scrutiny. Furthermore, Kendra continues, advancing to results that transform their personal success story into broader validation of ethical business practices. Independent analysis confirms that community partnership methodology generates sustainable economic development rather than technological dependency. The screen displays data compiled by Seoul National University's Economics Department, local employment creation, teacher capability development, student achievement improvement, community technology ownership that continues long after initial infrastructure installation. Indonesian village schools, Junho explains, highlighting specific implementation successes, report 63% improvement in student college preparation scores. Philippine rural districts demonstrate 41% increase in teacher retention rates. Vietnamese community centers document 87% growth in elderly digital literacy participation. These aren't corporate social responsibility statistics, Kendra emphasizes, ensuring the audience understands the fundamental distinction between their methodology and traditional technology dumping. These are educational outcomes, achieved through business practices that serve human flourishing while generating competitive returns. During the presentation's question period, inquiries address scalability, profitability, competitive advantage, replication potential across different cultural contexts. Each response demonstrates how ethical integration creates sustainable value rather than short-term extraction. Ms. Wallace, asks Dr. Ki. Sarah Chen from Singapore's Ministry of Education, your reduced profit margins suggest that community partnership requires financial sacrifice. How do you maintain investor support for lower returns? We attracted different investors, Kendra explains, who understand that sustainable 18% margins across multiple years outperform 43% margins that generate customer dissatisfaction and contract termination. Mr. Lee, continues Professor Ahmad Rahman from University of Indonesia. Traditional Chaebol structures emphasize hierarchical efficiency. Your partnership model suggests fundamental organizational change. How do Korean corporate cultures adapt to collaborative international methodology? Korean business success, Junho responds, has always required cultural adaptation while maintaining core values. This partnership honors my father's actual principles, serving communities rather than extracting from them, while embracing business practices that ensure long-term sustainability. The most significant question comes from World Bank representative Maria Santos. Your model demonstrates success across diverse cultural contexts. Are you prepared to expand beyond Southeast Asia into African and Latin American markets? The question carries implications that extend far beyond business opportunity into global validation of community partnership methodology as alternative to traditional development models that prioritize capital extraction over local empowerment. We're announcing, Kendra says, exchanging a glance with Junho that communicates both professional excitement and personal satisfaction. Phase 2, expansion into Sub-Saharan Africa and Central America. 50,000 additional students, 1,500 local technician positions, community partnership requirements built into every contract. With implementation priorities, Junho adds, determined by educational need rather than market size, profit potential balanced with community impact, cultural respect integrated into every aspect of technological deployment. The announcement generates sustained applause that reflects both professional recognition and personal celebration of leaders who chose ethical integration over expedient separation, community service over maximum profit extraction, authentic partnership over strategic positioning. But the most meaningful moment occurs during the post-presentation reception, when Yoon Mi-kyung approaches the podium where her son and his partner continue answering questions from delegates representing governmental, academic, and corporate interests. Your father, she tells Junho in Korean, her voice carrying decades of accumulated pride and satisfaction, would recognize his vision in everything you've built together. She turns to Kendra with the warm smile of someone whose initial cultural skepticism has transformed into genuine maternal affection. You honor his memory by helping my son become the leader he was meant to be. He honors your guidance by building something that serves communities rather than exploiting them, Kendra replies, bowing with respect that acknowledges both Korean cultural traditions and personal gratitude for family support that transcends ethnic boundaries. Their moment of family recognition is interrupted by Maya Santos, whose practical urgency cuts through ceremonial satisfaction. We have a problem. Richard Sterling just announced a competing venture backed by traditional Chaebol investors. They're promising 43% margins through standardized deployment without community partnership requirements. The news transforms celebration into strategic challenge. Traditional corporate interests launching coordinated response to ethical business methodology that threatens their profit maximization models. Timeline? Junho asks with the calm focus of someone who's learned to process external pressure without surrendering internal values. 6 months to market entry, targeting the same countries we're expanding into, Maya reports. Their marketing emphasizes efficiency over community partnership, cost reduction over local employment, rapid deployment over cultural integration. Then we demonstrate, Kendra says with quiet confidence, why sustainable success requires choosing communities over quarterly earnings, partnership over domination, long-term value creation over short-term profit extraction. That evening, in the hotel suite that has served as their planning headquarters for expansion that now spans continents, they address implications that test whether their success can survive competition from adversaries who learn from their innovations while rejecting their ethical foundations. Sterling's venture represents everything we chose to abandon, Junho observes, reviewing competitor analysis that Maya compiled. Maximum profit margins, minimal community investment, standardized deployment that ignores cultural differences. Which means, Kendra replies, studying market projections that show traditional methodology can achieve faster initial expansion through cost reduction strategies they've deliberately rejected. We're about to discover whether ethical business practices can compete with exploitation when both approaches target the same communities. The test isn't just professional, Junho says, recognizing that their personal relationship will face renewed scrutiny if business performance falters under competitive pressure. If we fail to demonstrate superior outcomes, critics will claim that personal involvement compromised objective decision-making. Then we don't fail, Kendra responds with the determination that first attracted him to partnership with someone whose convictions match his own. We build something so successful that it redefines what international development can accomplish when it serves communities rather than extracting from them. They work through the night, refining expansion strategies that balance growth ambitions with community partnership requirements, competitive response with ethical integrity, financial sustainability with human dignity. By morning, their planning has evolved into something that transcends mere business strategy, a commitment to demonstrating that love and legacy can create sustainable success that honors communities while building international partnerships based on mutual respect rather than cultural domination. Outside their windows, Seoul awakens to another day of 8 million individual dreams pursuing their own complex negotiations between tradition and innovation, family expectations and personal authenticity, inherited structures and earned convictions. But inside this quiet space, two people who chose each other professionally and personally prepare to defend everything they've built together, not just against business competitors, but against anyone who believes that ethical leadership requires choosing between profit and principle, success and service, love and legacy. The boardroom crisis arrives 18 months after their partnership transformed two companies, 3 months after Richard Sterling's competitive venture launched with promises of traditional profit maximization, and 24 hours after quarterly earnings reports reveal the true cost of choosing communities over extraction-based business models. In the familiar mahogany-paneled conference room at Lee Group headquarters, 8 board members review financial data that threatens everything Junho and Kendra have built together. The numbers tell a complex story: sustainable profit margins versus rapid competitor growth, community satisfaction versus shareholder pressure, long-term value creation versus short-term financial optimization. Sterling's venture, Finance Director Kim Soo-jung reports with professional concern that masks personal calculation, has captured 37% of our targeted Southeast Asian markets through aggressive pricing and rapid deployment strategies. Their profit margins, adds Executive Vice President Choi Young-min, exceed our projections by 18 percentage points through elimination of community partnership requirements, local employment mandates, ongoing support obligations. Around the table, board members who supported ethical business practices when they generated positive publicity now question whether principled leadership can survive competitive pressure from adversaries willing to abandon community service for maximum profit extraction. Stock price has declined 22%. Director Park Byung-ho continues, consulting his tablet with the careful neutrality of someone calculating personal risk. International investors are reconsidering commitments to companies that prioritize social impact over financial optimization. Junho sits at the head of the table his father once commanded, processing pressure that tests every decision he's made since choosing partnership over traditional chaebol profit maximization. In the past 18 months, he's learned that ethical leadership requires constant choice between expedient compromise and principled persistence. Community outcomes, he responds calmly, demonstrate sustainable value that Sterling's methodology cannot replicate. 63% higher customer retention, 41% improved teacher satisfaction, 87% greater student achievement across all implementation sites. But, interrupts board member Lee Sang-woo, community outcomes don't compensate for competitive disadvantage when shareholders expect traditional returns. Traditional returns, Junho replies with firmness that reflects personal conviction rather than corporate positioning. Generated short-term profit followed by contract termination, reputation damage, community exploitation that violated everything my father built this company to achieve. The debate continues through 2 hours of complex navigation between corporate governance requirements, shareholder expectations, competitive pressure, and ethical integrity. Each board member weighs personal loyalty against external demands for abandoning community partnership in favor of profit maximization strategies that have proven more immediately lucrative. Across time zones, Kendra faces parallel challenges via video conference connections that span continents and currencies. The Korean partnership, declares investor Michael Rodriguez from his Chicago office, has become a liability that threatens company viability. Sterling's competing venture demonstrates that ethical business practices cannot sustain competitive performance. Sterling's venture, Kendra responds with data compiled through 18 months of community implementation, generates higher immediate profits through community exploitation that creates long-term reputation damage, contract cancellation, market instability that destroys sustainable growth potential. Okay, but immediate profits, interjects Catherine Hayes from her New York office, generate shareholder returns that sustain investor confidence. Ethical practices that reduce financial performance become irrelevant if companies cannot maintain market position. Ethical practices, Kendra counters, that generate 18% margins sustained across multiple years outperform extraction methodologies that produce 43% margins followed by community backlash, contract termination, competitive disadvantage. The video conference continues through detailed analysis of Sterling's quarterly reports. which reveal impressive short-term growth achieved through precisely the cost-cutting strategies that Kyungrae and Junho deliberately rejected: standardized deployment without cultural adaptation, minimal local employment, elimination of ongoing support obligations. The question, Catherine declares as discussion approaches its climactic decision point, becomes whether to maintain partnership with Korean leadership that prioritizes social impact over financial optimization, or pivot toward competitive methodologies that months of proof that ethical integration generates superior outcomes. Becomes whether we build companies that serve communities while creating sustainable profit, or abandon everything we've learned about authentic partnership for short-term financial performance. The board votes by narrow margin, 5-4, to maintain current partnership pending demonstration within 6 months that community-focused methodology can compete successfully against traditional profit maximization approaches. But the real test arrives that evening, in the hotel suite where Junho and Kyungrae must decide whether their partnership can survive pressure designed to force them to choose between business success and personal integrity. Both boards demand proof, Kyungrae says, reviewing the day's crisis meetings, that ethical business practices can outperform traditional profit maximization when competitors use our innovations while rejecting our values. 6 months, Junho adds, studying market analysis that shows Sterling's venture gaining ground through aggressive expansion strategies they could easily replicate by abandoning community partnership requirements. To demonstrate that sustainable success requires choosing communities over quarterly earnings, they face the moment that defines not just their business future, but their capacity to maintain personal relationship while navigating professional challenges that test every principle they've fought to establish. We could match Sterling's margins, Kyungrae observes quietly, by eliminating community partnership requirements, reducing local employment, standardizing deployment without cultural adaptation. We could secure both boards' support by choosing profit optimization over community service. But we'd become everything we chose to abandon 18 months ago. The silence that follows contains decades of accumulated dreams. Kyungrae's childhood promise to transform education through technology that serves rather than exploits. Junho's commitment to honor his father's vision of business that creates opportunities rather than extracting resources. The choice, Junho says finally, isn't between business success and personal values. It's between two different definitions of success itself. Traditional success, Kyungrae continues, measures quarterly profits regardless of community impact. Sustainable success measures community outcomes that generate long-term profit through authentic partnership. Then we choose sustainable success, he replies, reaching across the table to take her hand in the gesture that first sealed their business partnership and has evolved into personal commitment. Even if it costs us everything we've inherited. Even if it costs us everything, she agrees, intertwining their fingers with the certainty of someone who's learned that meaningful success requires choosing values over convenience, principles over profit margins, authentic partnership over strategic positioning. 6 months later, the same Seoul International Convention Center that hosted their first joint presentation witnesses the announcement that transforms their personal relationship and professional partnership into validation of ethical business practices over traditional profit maximization. The auditorium, packed with 4,000 delegates from 62 countries, contains government officials seeking educational solutions, investors calculating competitive advantage, community leaders hoping for authentic partnership rather than exploitative contracts. On stage, beneath lighting that transforms personal vulnerability into public authority, Kyungrae and Junho prepare to reveal results that either vindicate community partnership methodology or demonstrate the limitations of idealistic business practices when competing against traditional extraction models. 6 months ago, Junho begins, his voice carrying confidence earned through surviving coordinated pressure from boards demanding abandonment of ethical integration. Sterling's competing venture captured 37% of Southeast Asian educational technology markets through traditional profit maximization strategies. 6 months ago, Kyungrae continues with seamless collaboration that demonstrates partnership strengthened rather than weakened by external pressure. Both our boards questioned whether community-focused business practices could survive competitive challenges from adversaries willing to exploit rather than serve educational communities. Behind them, the massive screen displays comparative data that silences critics who predicted their methodology would collapse under competitive pressure. Sterling's venture showing impressive initial growth, followed by systematic contract cancellations, community backlash, reputation damage that destroyed sustainable expansion potential. Today, Kendra announces, Sterling's venture has lost 68% of its original contracts due to community dissatisfaction, technical failures, cultural conflicts that their standardized deployment methodology couldn't address. Today, Junho adds, our joint venture serves 700,000 students across 23 countries, employs 6,000 local technicians, maintains 19% profit margins while generating customer satisfaction rates 73% higher than industry standards. The audience responds with sustained attention that reflects both professional vindication and personal celebration of leaders whose relationships survived international scrutiny while demonstrating that ethical business practices create competitive advantage rather than financial liability. Furthermore, Kendra continues, advancing to results that transform their success story into broader validation of sustainable business methodology. Independent economic analysis confirms that community partnership generates regional development rather than technological dependency. The screen displays data compiled by Harvard Business School's International Development Program. Local employment creation that continues beyond initial infrastructure installation. Teacher capability development that serves educational needs long after technology deployment. Community technology ownership that creates sustainable digital literacy rather than temporary access. Indonesian schools, Junho explains, highlighting specific outcomes that demonstrate community partnership superiority. Report 87% contract renewal rates compared to Sterling's 23%. Philippine districts document 64% improvement in student college preparation. Vietnamese centers show 91% growth in community technology leadership. These results, Kendra emphasizes, demonstrate that sustainable profit requires authentic partnership rather than efficient extraction, cultural integration rather than standardized deployment, long-term relationship building rather than short-term cost optimization. The presentation's question period addresses implications that extend beyond their immediate success into broader validation of ethical business practices as competitive advantage in international markets, increasingly focused on sustainable development rather than traditional resource extraction. Ms. Wallace, asks Dr. Elizabeth Wren from Finland's Ministry of Education, your model suggests that reduced profit margins generate superior long-term returns. How do you maintain investor support for this seemingly counterintuitive approach? We attracted investors, Kendra explains, who understand that sustainable 19% margins across multiple years with high renewal rates outperform traditional 43% margins, followed by contract cancellation and reputation damage that destroys expansion potential. Mr. Lee, continues Professor James Morrison from Oxford University's Business School. Your success challenges fundamental assumptions about Chiebel efficiency through hierarchical control. How has family business culture adapted to collaborative international partnership? Korean business success, Junho responds, has always required cultural evolution while maintaining core principles. This partnership honors my father's actual vision, serving communities through innovation, while embracing methodologies that ensure sustainable competitive advantage. The most significant validation comes from World Bank President Dr. Sarah Chen. Your results demonstrate scalable methodology for international development that serves local empowerment rather than capital extraction. Are you prepared to expand this model globally as alternative to traditional development approaches? The question carries implications that transform their personal success story into international recognition of community partnership as superior business methodology for sustainable development across emerging economies. We're announcing, Kendra says, exchanging a glance with Junho that communicates both professional triumph and personal satisfaction. Phase 3 expansion into Sub-Saharan Africa, Latin America, and South Asia. 1 million additional students, 12,000 local technician positions, community partnership requirements integrated into every deployment. With expansion priorities, Junho adds, determined by educational impact potential rather than market size, sustainable profit balanced with community empowerment, cultural respect built into every aspect of technological infrastructure development. The announcement generates standing ovation that reflects both professional recognition of superior business methodology and personal celebration of leaders whose relationship demonstrated that love and legacy can create sustainable success through ethical integration rather than traditional profit maximization. But the most meaningful moment occurs during the post-presentation reception, when Yoon Mi-kyung approaches the podium where international delegates continue discussing implementation strategies for community partnership across diverse cultural contexts. "Your father," she tells Junho in Korean, her voice carrying decades of accumulated pride in watching her son transform inherited expectations into earned convictions, "would recognize his deepest values in everything you've accomplished together." She turns to Kendra, with the warm embrace of someone whose initial cultural concerns have evolved into genuine maternal love. "You helped my son become the leader he was meant to be, while building something that serves communities rather than exploiting them." "He helped me understand," Kendra replies, returning the embrace with respect that transcends cultural boundaries. "That sustainable business requires authentic partnership between people who share ethical priorities regardless of different backgrounds." Their family moment is interrupted by Park Min-seok, whose practical urgency cuts through ceremonial satisfaction. "The Korean Business Times wants an exclusive interview about your relationship. International media are requesting features about cross-cultural partnership success. The news represents opportunity rather than crisis, media attention focused on professional achievement and personal authenticity rather than scandal and speculation." "We'll do interviews," Junho decides with calm confidence, "that focus on business methodology and community impact. Personal relationship remains private unless it demonstrates that authentic partnership enhances rather than compromises professional effectiveness." That evening, in the hotel suite that has served as their planning headquarters for expansion, that now spans continents and impacts millions of lives, they address implications of success that validates everything they chose to build together. 3 years ago, Kendra observes, reviewing media coverage that celebrates their partnership rather than sensationalizing it, "we were adversaries representing competing approaches to international business. Tonight," Junho replies, "studying expansion plans that will serve educational communities across 4 continents. We're partners whose success demonstrates that ethical integration creates competitive advantage while honoring human dignity. The question becomes," Kendra continues, "whether we can maintain authenticity while managing international attention that transforms personal relationship into public symbol." "That depends," Junho says, reaching for her hand in the gesture that has evolved from business handshake into personal commitment, "on whether we remain focused on serving communities rather than managing celebrity." They work through the night, refining expansion strategies that balance growth opportunities with community partnership requirements, international recognition with personal privacy, professional success with authentic relationship maintenance. By morning, their planning has evolved into something that transcends business strategy, a commitment to demonstrating that sustainable success serves communities while building partnerships based on mutual respect, shared values, cultural integration that honors differences rather than eliminating them. Outside their windows, Seoul awakens to another day of 8 million individual dreams, each person navigating complex negotiations between tradition and innovation, family expectations and personal authenticity, inherited structures and earned convictions. But inside this quiet space, 2 people who chose ethical integration over expedient compromise prepare to expand something together that proves love and legacy can transform business practices, serve communities, and create sustainable success that honors both professional excellence and personal authenticity. Epilogue: The Legacy They Built. 2 years later, on a crisp October morning in Seoul, the Lee Wallace Community Technology Center stands as a gleaming symbol of what becomes possible when love and legacy choose service over profit, partnership over domination, authentic connection over strategic positioning. The building itself represents architectural fusion, Korean traditional design elements integrated with contemporary American functionality. Floor-to-ceiling windows that welcome natural light alongside ondol heating systems that honor cultural heritage. Inside, 500 people of all ages learn technology skills that connect them to opportunities previously inaccessible due to digital literacy barriers. Kendra moves through the main classroom, observing elderly participants who master video calling with the patient determination of people discovering that technology serves human connection rather than replacing it. Her wedding ring catches morning light as she helps Mrs. Kim, now 83 and teaching other seniors how to order groceries online, adjust her computer screen for optimal visibility. The granddaughter in Toronto, Mrs. Kim, reports with satisfaction that transcends technological achievement. Says I send better photos now than her own mother. Technology becomes friend when someone teaches it with respect. Across the room, Jun-ho reviews financial reports with David Park. Their conversation focused on expansion sustainability rather than profit maximization. The center operates on the same community partnership principles that transformed their international business. 18% margins that generate ongoing support, local employment that creates investment and success, cultural integration that honors dignity while embracing innovation. The monthly operating costs, David explains, consulting his tablet while teenagers in the adjacent room design websites for local businesses, are covered entirely by the International Ventures Dedicated Community Development Fund. No external donations required, no government subsidies needed. Because, Jun-ho observes, watching 17-year-old Park Soo-jin explain coding basics to her grandfather, sustainable business generates resources for community service, rather than requiring choice between profit and purpose. Their conversation continues through mid-morning observations of programs that demonstrate how ethical business practices create social infrastructure, computer literacy classes for working parents, digital art programs for creative teenagers, online business development workshops for entrepreneurs whose physical limitations prevent traditional employment. The center's existence validates everything they chose to build together professionally and personally, proof that love and legacy can serve communities while generating sustainable returns, that international partnerships can honor cultural differences while creating shared success, that business relationships can evolve into personal commitment without compromising professional excellence. At noon, they meet in the center's quiet conference room for the weekly planning session that has become ritual rather than requirement. Time dedicated to expansion strategies, community feedback integration, personal relationship maintenance that strengthens, rather than competes with professional partnership. The African expansion, Kendra reports, reviewing implementation data from programs across 12 countries, shows the same pattern we established in Southeast Asia. 19% margins, 84% customer satisfaction, 77% contract renewal rates. Local employment creation, Jun-ho adds, studying economic impact assessments compiled by Oxford University researchers, generates regional development that continues long after initial technology deployment. Communities become partners rather than consumers. Their discussion shifts toward personal planning that integrates seamlessly with professional objectives. Housing decisions that accommodate both Korean family traditions and American independence expectations. Travel schedules that balance international expansion requirements with authentic relationship cultivation. Future family considerations that honor both cultural backgrounds while creating something entirely new. Maya asks when we're planning children, Kendra mentions with the comfortable directness of someone whose professional partnership has evolved into personal intimacy. She wants to design international programs that accommodate family responsibilities. My mother suggests we're old enough to start considering generational legacy, Jun-ho replies with gentle humor that acknowledges Mi-kyung's maternal interest in grandchildren who will inherit both Korean business traditions and American social impact methodologies. The question becomes whether we can integrate parenting with international expansion that serves 4 continents. The same way we integrated everything else, he says, reaching for her hand across the conference table in the gesture that has evolved from professional handshake into personal anchor. through authentic partnership that honors both individual dreams and shared values. Their afternoon continues through center visits, sole locations that serve different neighborhoods, each one adapted to specific community needs, while maintaining core principles of technology deployment with dignity, respect, ongoing support that creates empowerment rather than dependency. By evening, they return to the penthouse apartment that represents successful fusion of Korean architectural elements with American functional preferences, traditional furniture alongside contemporary art, kimchi refrigerator beside wine collection, spaces designed for both family gathering and individual retreat. 3 years ago, Kendra observes as they prepare dinner together in the kitchen that accommodates both Korean and American cooking traditions, we were adversaries competing for the same contract. Tonight, Junho replies, chopping vegetables with the practiced efficiency of someone who's learned that shared domestic responsibilities strengthen rather than diminish partnership. We're married partners whose business serves communities across 4 continents. The question becomes, Kendra continues, stirring soup that combines Korean techniques with ingredients from her Detroit childhood, whether we've actually built something sustainable or just created beautiful temporary success. That depends, Junho says, setting the table with dishes that honor both cultural backgrounds, on whether the communities we serve can maintain technology independence after we're gone. Their dinner conversation continues through evening planning of programs designed to transfer ownership rather than maintain dependency, teacher training initiatives that create local expertise, technician certification programs that develop community capability, leadership development that empowers rather than controls. The Seoul Centers, Kendra notes, reviewing quarterly assessments that measure community ownership rather than corporate efficiency, operate with minimal external support. Local leaders make decisions, community funding sustains programs, cultural adaptation happens organically. Because, Junho adds, we designed business practices that serve empowerment rather than extraction, partnership rather than control, legacy creation rather than profit maximization. Before sleep, they stand together on the apartment's terrace, Seoul's lights stretching endlessly below them. 8 million people pursuing individual dreams through shared urban infrastructure. The city represents everything they've learned about integration, tradition and innovation coexisting, individual ambition and community service strengthening each other, different cultures creating fusion rather than conflict. Tomorrow, Kendra says, her hand finding his in the darkness, we announce the India expansion. 50,000 additional students, 3,000 local technician positions, community partnership requirements that honor cultural diversity while creating technological access. Tomorrow, Junho replies, drawing her closer against the evening chill. We demonstrate again that love and legacy can build something that serves others while creating personal fulfillment. Above them, stars shine despite the city's brightness, distant lights that witness human attempts to create meaning through connection, service, authentic partnership between people who choose each other professionally and personally. Forever? Kendra asks, echoing the question that sealed their first business agreement. Forever, Junho confirms, his voice carrying the certainty of someone who's learned that sustainable success requires choosing values over convenience, authentic connection over strategic positioning, community service over profit maximization. Their kiss, witnessed only by Seoul's endless lights and eternal stars, seals not just personal commitment, but professional legacy. Two people who proved that ethical business practices create competitive advantage, that international partnerships can honor cultural differences while building shared success, that love and legacy can transform inherited expectations into earned convictions that serve communities rather than exploiting them. In the morning, their work will continue across continents and cultures. But tonight, they rest in the satisfaction of having built something together that honors both individual dreams and collective human dignity. A partnership that demonstrates sustainable success requires choosing people over profit, respect over rules, love over legacy defined by others.